Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our startup series. And this session is all about LinkedIn. And since you are on the platform, welcome. You are doing the right LinkedIn strategy to start with, right? So that's really great. But let me introduce myself. Hi, my name is Govind. I run a company called Arctic Invent. We help companies build formidable IP portfolios to increase their enterprise value and also defend them against copycats. But let's start with some numbers. LinkedIn has more than 900 million users, and India has more than 101 million users next to US. So it's a great community. It's a great platform to be on for all the businesses. And as Entrepreneur India has estimated that 72% of the businesses in India are using LinkedIn for building brands and thought leadership. And this is no brainer for us to get something on this topic because it's such an important aspect to a startup. So I have great privilege to have Michelle with me today. She's an international LinkedIn page company expert. She's a LinkedIn B2B strategist. She has been into B2B sales in her career. She's also part of LinkedIn Business Advisory Council for LinkedIn pages. Welcome, Michelle. But before we get started, it would be great if you could introduce yourself and let's get the ball started.
Look, thank you for the introduction and the opportunity to join you because you are right. LinkedIn in India has exploded in the last 2 years. And I think that's just reflective of such a strong economy in the startup environment that you've got there. So I'm Michelle J Raymond. If you can't work it out, I'm based here down in Sydney, Australia. I'm a LinkedIn trainer that specializes in LinkedIn for businesses. So I teach people how to sell more and grow their business without spamming and annoying their buyers. I'm really passionate about working with businesses one on one. It's because every business is different, and I'm really excited about startups in particular. I started my business just in March 2020. And so I know what that process is like. And I also know the power of LinkedIn to help you get to your goals faster. And I can't wait to share some of those strategies today.
Great. Thanks, Michelle, for your kind introduction. And to all the folks who are live, just a reminder that Michelle is going to be here. Put your question and answers in the comments, and I'm sure during the course of conversation we will make sure that we address all those questions by way of me asking them, or in the end, Michelle will spend some more time with us and answer all of them. Uh, but let's begin, with the basics, Michelle. And LinkedIn has two kind of pages, which people usually get confused with. One is, of course, the personal page or the personal profile, and then the company page. Could you please help us understand, what is it? Why this difference? Which one should be used for what? If you can start from there, that would be great.
Yeah, of course, no problems. And, there are a lot of misconceptions around LinkedIn and how you should use it. So I'm going to give you the best way that I've learnt, and that is a combination of using your personal page, which is your personal profile, and your company page. And let me tell you the difference. So one of them you can own as a founder, CEO, or even an employee, and that's yours and yours alone. And that's about building up your personal brand. So you'll have a LinkedIn profile that reflects you and your experience. And then you'll also maybe put some content out that speaks to your knowledge of your industry. On the other hand, though, we all work for companies. Most of us have got a company that's been set up in the startup land. And so we want to start to create brand awareness for your company just as much. And so that's where company pages come into it. So they're effectively run on behalf of the company. So there's no individuals. They're sitting behind the scenes. So it runs by a logo as opposed to your profile photo, is how you can distinguish the two. And ultimately, what we've got to look at is, where should you spend most of your time? Now, I'm a company page expert. I love them, but maybe when you're starting out, it's not the best place to spend all of your time. But at the same time, there's so many advantages if you start early in your startup process and start to build that brand, because Your brand will open up doors and opportunities, maybe for investors, maybe it's for partners that you want to work with, maybe it's for the best employees that you want to come and work for you. It's the same as, why does everyone want to work for Google or Microsoft or any of those blue chip companies? Because they have a really strong company brand. So the way I like to look at LinkedIn is build a really strong personal brand as the founder and for your employees, and build a really strong company brand and make the two of them work together for you.
Sure. No, great to know that. And I think one of the very important key takeaway is that most of the time, founders are making their own, profile stronger and, company pages, but not the employees. I think one of the insights that I also, learned here is that it's also important to build, great profiles for your employees as well, because I think that will also show when people go on the company pages and those things. So, thank you for
Absolutely.
sharing that. So Michelle, what kind of post available on each of these pages? Of course, everything can be posted, but could you please suggest some ways to use them on
Yeah,
each of these? Yeah.
absolutely. So, what's happened over the period of COVID is what we used to think was a good post on our company page is no longer something that works so well. So, historically, what would you post on a company page? Maybe your company results, maybe a special announcement, maybe you've just received funding. It was all about you as the company. And what happens is people have kind of changed how they use social media and LinkedIn in particular. And so we kind of scroll past that and we get bored of it, because why are we on social media in the first place? Normally, we're looking to be educated, entertained, or inspired. And so when you look at LinkedIn from that perspective, from the person that you want to look at your content, we have to create content that solves those problems for them. Now, on the personal side, there's a mixture of different ways that we can do it. But what's really interesting is the content that works on your personal profile. Good news, you can use that again over on your company page. And it doesn't have to be on the same day, but there's a real big opportunity to repurpose a lot of content. Now, I have to give the disclaimer, I wouldn't be, teaching people the right things if I didn't put this out there, because most individuals have more connections, especially if you've been in, your job for or your career for a while. What will happen is you'll have a lot more personal connections and followers than your company page when you're starting out. So that means that you're more likely to reach more people, get more engagement, and get your message across. So you will probably focus more time creating content out of your personal profile than what you will do over on your company page. But the good news is the types of content actually work the same across both.
Sure. So I think one of the great insights that people come on social media for three things, inspire, entertain, and educated. I think this is like a very basic outline for everybody who is listening. This is to, when they're posting content, they should kind of think that, okay, is it going to entertain them, educate them, or inspire them? I think that that's a great test before we put out anything on the social media, on the company page. Great. This is something. It's a great test for anybody who is listening this. And then there are events, right? And now there are two kind of events. One is, of course, where we are on, and then next big thing is people talking about audio podcast and having conversations over audios. What's your opinion on what's the difference? How they should be used and when?
Look, it's really great that LinkedIn gives us so many different types of tools. So we can create a text post, we can do videos, we can have images. There's all kinds of different ways that you can connect with your audience. You can do something like the LinkedIn Live, which is what we're doing here right now. So you can have the audience out there and interact with them in real time. LinkedIn Audio is brand new and only just rolling out on company pages. So I just finished being a part of the testing program for that. And that's essentially similar to what we're doing today, but it's audio only. So if you've ever been on Clubhouse, very similar to that setup, but keeping in mind that we're on a B2B platform and it's all about doing business on LinkedIn. And so this is why it's really important that we want to find a way on LinkedIn to start to build communities, to start to have conversations with those users of our products or maybe our service providers or our target audience. And so who they are will depend on the kinds of different things that you do. So if you're a startup that's looking for new investors, you might do it different to a startup that's looking for new customers to maybe use their software or, one of their services. So what I would say to people is we've got all these different tools, Gavin. My advice to people is rotate through them. And the reason I say that is very, very scientifically backed. We all learn differently. So, for me personally, I love to read and write. That's my preferred learning style. If you make me listen to an audio, like a podcast or something, it puts me to sleep, right? I hate it. There are other people that if I said to them, go and read a really long article, they would be like, no way, Michelle, just give me a nice infographic or a nice picture or a video. And, that's how they learn. And some people like to learn by doing things. And so if you keep that in mind, then you can say, if I rotate different ones, I'm going to reach different audiences. And I think that's the most important thing. And do something that you enjoy and you find fun. If
Sure.
you don't enjoy LinkedIn, what happens is you give up. And that's the last thing that I want for anybody.
Sure. I think great. Again, one of the key takeaway for anybody who's listening is to not really post or use a tool which I like or your social media person likes. That okay, I like videos, then video it is. I'll post only videos. It's like like you said, it has to be rotating. Different people have different choices. Text. So what I understand is that there's no perfect way. It could be video, audio, or text. It has to be in rotation. It could not be only audios and videos, because that has been one of the big misconception on social media, that hey, video sells, have more promotion and than an audio or than a text. So that's really great insight here. But again, then it's articles and newsletters, right? It gets even more confusing, how they differ, and how they should be used. Again, one way if
Yeah.
you can share with us.
You're right. There's so much confusion and there's so many different tools that we've got. So, LinkedIn articles are something that I absolutely love. So, for people that have never used them, they're a long form similar to a blog that you would do on your website. Now, why would you do it on LinkedIn? Why would you create an article, especially as a startup? Here's the secret. When you're a startup and you're just setting up websites and things like that, from Google's perspective, you actually don't have a lot of credibility. So you can have an amazing blog article on your website, but if someone's looking for it in search, it may not come up. The good part is on LinkedIn, we can create that blog as an article. And so you can put pictures in it, you can embed videos, there's all kinds of cool things that you can do. The best part and why I love them is they get indexed by Google. And so, because LinkedIn is the world's number one most trusted platform, quite often you'll see a LinkedIn article show up as an answer to questions that you type in the Google search bar. So, this is another way that your business can get discovered and it adds to your credibility. Because when you're starting out, you need to do so much more work to build who you are, that people can trust you and that they know that you know what you're talking about. So we also recently got newsletters and you've got them on your company page as well. And what's the difference? A newsletter on LinkedIn, when you first look at them, looks exactly the same as an article. So you can do all the same things, they're created the same way. But the main difference with a newsletter is that you can build up subscribers. And what that means is every time you post the newsletter, everybody that's a subscriber gets notified or sent an email, depending on their settings, to let them know that that's been created. And that's just a game changer because we struggle to actually get shown in the home feed. So, from this perspective, if you've got subscribers, but I want to give your audience a practical tip because I like to make sure that if you're listening in live, and I appreciate people that are joining us, here's a special tip for anyone. Your very first newsletter, I call it the free kick. You do not want to waste it. It's the only time on LinkedIn that when you create it, it goes to every single one of your page followers. Or if you create it under your personal profile, so because you can do newsletters personally, every single one of your personal connections and followers. Now, we don't want to waste this free kick. So if you're only starting out, you've only got a few hundred connections, hold off till you reach about 1,000, because the more that we can hold off, like I said, it's the only time that it ever happens, and we don't want to waste that chance.
Wow, Michelle, I never knew, using LinkedIn. This is something new for me. Thanks for sharing. And I think one of the great insights that I can also, kind of share with people is that when we are writing blogs, I think on the websites or we are creating blogs, it's actually very nice strategy to, replicate that blog on LinkedIn as well. Because then, like you said, SEO, a lot of people focus on SEOs on their own websites, but I think for B2B sales, it has to be also the LinkedIn as well. That we should be putting a lot of content on LinkedIn, blog articles and newsletters, because that will automatically index at Google. I think that's one of the key takeaways for people who are doing articles already, but they are not using the power of LinkedIn on this. This is something that people can definitely use. And this free kick of sending everybody is an amazing hack or tip. Thank you for sharing that. Now, one
That's
of the questions that a lot of people think about as newsletters is that how to get people to subscribe them. Um, should I am a kind of a very B2B focused startup. Should I actually have a newsletter? If yes, then what it should be? So I think two-part question. As a startup from B2B in a very specialized domain, what are the benefits of newsletter? Of course, one, and then how to get to people subscribe it, because people are overloaded with all these subscriptions. So what's your tip on that?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. We do get bombarded all kinds of, places, not just while we're on LinkedIn, but everywhere off LinkedIn. So always have a goal and a strategy in mind. And if you've been creating content on LinkedIn for a little while, then a newsletter might be a good evolution. If you're only new to creating content on LinkedIn and you're already like in it up to here trying to keep up with startup life, and you've got, projects on the go all the time, then it may not be the right time to do it for you. You might want to wait, down the track. There's one reason why I love LinkedIn newsletters, and it works for me personally. And I'm probably in a similar position. I'm coming into the third year of my business, so I'm reasonably at the early stages of startup. What actually will happen is when you send it out, there's a couple of different ways that LinkedIn is going to help you get subscribers. So not only do they do it on that first time, there's different places, like when you visit a company page. So if you went to my company page, Good Trading Co., what you'll actually see is halfway down the page, the newsletter sits right in the middle of the company page. So if anyone happens to visit my company page, they'll see it right there and it's easy to subscribe. The same thing happens over on your personal profile. If you happen to create it that way, then what will happen is it will show up in your featured section as well. So you can highlight it, but you can always promote it in your blogs that you do offsite. You can invite people to come and follow it. There's lots of different ways that you would do it. So to answer your question, is it right for everybody in the beginning? No, it's not. It comes down to how much can you keep it as a priority and keep it consistent. And if you can't do that, then just hold off until the business settles down a little bit. But here's why I want people to consider it. And again, another tip. So this isn't my research. This is actually done by LinkedIn's B2B Institute, right? So they've got way more resources than I would ever dream about. And they did a report with what's a company called Edelman, and they do this report every single year, and it just got released. In a year that might have financial doom and gloom, which from my understanding is not going to be India this year. I think you guys are going really great, but other parts of the world aren't so lucky, and you might be impacted from that, from a global perspective. But here's why we should do it. When we create our thought leadership pieces in the form of these articles and blogs, in a financially tight market, that helps you to stay top of mind with your audience. It distinguishes you from your competitors, so you stand out, and it enables you to make sure that you're in for the most opportunities possible. And so we know that when it's a tight financial year, the buyers that we're chasing, so if we're the modern B2B sellers, we've got to team up with buyers. They've got less money to spend. They're not spending on as many different projects. So you want to make sure that you're always included in the mix when they're buying. And so we've when they're doing their research, go back, educated, entertained, inspired. If we look at educated, if they're looking to research before they buy something, give them something that's of value to find. And I don't mean go onto ChatGPT, type in a blog title and ask it to write it for you so it sounds like everybody else's website. That's not what I'm talking about. I love ChatGPT, but this is not what I want you to do. I want you to share what you're passionate about and why you started your business and what makes your business different.
Sure. No, thanks. I have a question on ChatGPT, but later, before this big question, I think one of the bigger question that I also had, and a lot of people who are listening in, which is the big question, is the content, right? I think there are all the tools, all the ways, audio, video, podcast, everything is available. But what are your views on content? What kind of content? Of course, we have defined this, three categories, but what are content we should be posting?
Yeah.
Something inspiring for you or entertaining for me may not be for everybody, right? So, what are your
Yeah.
views on this content as such?
And your audience is completely different to my audience. So is the people that are listening into this live or maybe watching the replay. We've all got different audiences. So you have to do a little bit of work to see what works for your particular community. But when you're starting out, I'm going to give you my 3-2-1 content strategy, which normally people only get this when I'm doing training. So here's what I would say to you to make it really simple to answer the question, what type of content? One of the problems that we've got is how much of each type of content do I talk about my business all the time? Do I talk about my products? How do people know whether they like my business? And so this really addresses that. So if you add up 3 plus 2 plus 1, that equals 6 posts. So we're going to talk about 6 posts in total. Now, you might only be able to have 2 posts per week, and that's fine. If you can get to 3, that's amazing. But the main point of what I'm about to share with you is to make sure you rotate things in this order and keep it in this ratio. And I'll explain why. So, 3 posts are going to be what I call good to know. Now, what's a good to know post? Like, what does that actually mean? This is where you get to share your industry knowledge. So, what's been happening? What trends are coming through? Has there been regulatory changes? Has there been maybe a big court case where someone got done for copycatting because they infringed on somebody else's IP? There can be all kinds of different things going on in industries where you can share what you know about it. There's a reason that people go into startup, and it's not because it's easy. There's normally a problem that you really want to solve and that you're passionate about solving that. So share about your knowledge of that particular industry. So that's 3 posts. 2 posts are going to be what I call good to feel. And what's a good to feel post? What does that even mean? A good to feel post is when buyers are doing their research, they want to work with businesses that align with values. So when you create what I call good to feel posts, it means I get to see what your company stands for and what's important. What does that actually look like? The best tool that I can give you is a smartphone taking a photo of any employee doing anything, even if it's just you, if you're the only one in the business at this stage. Selfies work on LinkedIn, especially for the younger age group, depending who your target audience is. Even in a B2B space, if you're doing work out in the community, make sure you share about that. Make sure that people get a really good idea of maybe there's a milestone that you've just achieved. Maybe you've just made your first year. Maybe you've just got your first round of funding. All of these kind of things that we want to celebrate. The last one, which is the one that too many businesses miss, which I have to stress, don't forget to tell people what you do and how it helps them. Too many people are scared of selling on LinkedIn. And the reason that they're scared of it is if you just jump onto LinkedIn and you say, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, everybody goes, go away. I'm not interested. I'm getting spammed all day. Go away. But if you show them a lot of knowledge up front, so the good to know posts, you show them you're the kind of business that they would want to work with, it only makes sense that you say, hey, by the way, this is what I do and this is how I can help you. And that's just 1 post out of the 6. When you keep it in that ratio, 3, 2, and 1, what actually happens is people are not bombarded with too much selling. They don't get too much knowledge pushed at them. Like, because if you just do good to know posts, you know what happens? It ends up really boring, and everyone can do good to know posts. It's the what kind of distinguishing pieces of your business is what comes into the good to feels. So, 3 good to knows, 2 good to feels, and 1 good to buy. And that will keep you in a really good ratio.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. I think that answers a lot of questions around, what kind of content and what is it that we need to talk about. But, one of the extension of this question is that people are either too busy to write, or they have this not good enough feeling that, hey, I am not a writer. I don't know where to find good writers. How to, I'm not a creative person. Of course,
Yeah.
these are the common apprehensions when people think about these, 3 to 1 kind of
Mhm.
post, or good to know about, like you shared,
Yeah.
what kind of post should go out. So I think that's the fundamental block sometimes. So now, what is your advice? What they can do in terms of starting up slowly and steadily in this direction.
You have absolutely nailed the biggest challenge that most people have on LinkedIn. Like, I recently wrote a book called the LinkedIn Branding Book, which you would, the very first section is all dedicated to the fears of getting out there on LinkedIn. And that can be English as a second language, that can be fear of failure. Most startup founders are high achievers, highly driven, that have this kind of fear behind us that, we don't want to make sure that we come first or it's a failure. So there can be all kinds of things that go on for people why they don't want to. Here's the really good news. Even if you have a look at the platform, there's online studies that people have done around LinkedIn and online communities, even Twitter or these kind of places. The facts are that 90% of people will never ever create content. They'll never ever like, they'll never ever post, they'll do no comments, and they're invisible on the platform. You've got roughly, give or take, around 9% that might do a like and a comment here or there. So if you're that person that can put one post out from time to time, no matter what's in it, you're automatically in that top 1%. And that's the massive opportunity that startups have to really own their space by being brave, by having a go. It doesn't need to be perfect. No one is sitting there on LinkedIn marking you. No one, in my experience, I've been creating content most days for the last, pretty much 8 years. I can tell you I probably had 2 occasions from 2 complete strangers where I had some form of trolling that happened. And even then, it wasn't really that bad. But LinkedIn is a professional site where people are actually there to support you. You would be really surprised why, because if you're the 1% that puts it out there, they're in the 99% that are too scared to. So back yourself, back your confidence, and just know that you'll get better with some practice.
I think, Michelle, it kind of resonates with the universal law that only 1% people choose to take action, and it's like LinkedIn is a world in itself, right? So,
Yeah.
that's a great share. I think that's a big lesson for us and listeners here, that it is important to be brave on LinkedIn as well, while we are brave in the world and starting a startup, or running your own business or building your own brand. I think one key message I take it is that, be brave on LinkedIn as well, and start commenting and posting, right? So
If you're a startup founder or involved in a startup, you're brave, first off. It is probably the hardest thing, creating something that doesn't exist and finding a way to bring it out in the world. That is like 1,000 times harder than a LinkedIn post will ever be. So, if I can give you that confidence, the fact that you've already out there creating something in the world, having conversations, just talk about your project as you're building it. A lot of good startups will create content that says, this is what I'm up to, this is what we're trying, this failed, this worked. Don't be afraid to share successes and failures, because that's part of the journey, and that's why people will relate to your business. And then when you get to that point where it works, they're all going to be like, yes, you did it, like, because they've been following the story along, right? And we don't want people to not be successful. That's not what humans do in general. And, there will be people out there that will be on the other side, but just keep going and believe in yourself, just like you do in your actual startup.
Oh, great. Thanks, Michelle. And I think the next question is around, change in the content strategy with advent of Chat GPT. And there are many other tools which are now, Synthesia is there, around videos, and Chat GPT is on text. And a lot of AI driven tools are coming around content, right? They are trying to kind of say that, hey, use us to kind of, generate content. So will it lead to content fatigue, and what's your view on these tools as such, especially on the content which you are going to post on LinkedIn?
Look, the use of AI in creating content is here. It's only going to become a bigger part of what we do. The attraction to creating content on a tool like ChatGPT, which is really amazing. I've played around with it. I think it's incredible, the technology that's behind it. I think it's just, I'm absolutely blown away by what it can do, and it will only get better. Here's my concern that I have for people. Something that ChatGPT can never replace is the fact that it does not know your human experience, your personality, your feelings about a particular subject. So, what you will get from ChatGPT is quite a bland response that anybody in the world could generate the same thing. And if everybody's doing that, then what makes you different? And the biggest challenge that you have on LinkedIn is to make sure you stand out and not be the same as everybody else. How do we do that? We share our stories. Humans love stories. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. We all want to hear how things happened or what's, gone on for you to get where you are in business. What are the stories about how the product came about? What's your founder's story? Like, what are the stories that I've had in business? Like, for instance, I only started my business because I had to quit on the spot of a previous job and woke up the next day and said, I'm never working for anyone again. And my story continues from there. Now, ChatGPT is never going to be able to tell that story as much as I will because it's personal. So, the most important asset that you have on LinkedIn is your uniqueness and yourself and your unique perspective. So don't go thinking maybe, for some people, you might think ChatGPT is a better writer than me, so I should use it. I would rather have something that is maybe not quite as well written, but comes from you and your personal thoughts and feelings that will perform way better over time than something that's polished out of ChatGPT. I don't think ChatGPT is a problem. I think we need to learn how to use it, but I would use it more for coming up with ideas and topics as opposed to writing the actual content and your thoughts.
Sure. So I think that kind of answers the next question that I had in mind, that would you recommend using, such tools, and like you said, it is about sharing your own authentic experience and genuine experience, and maybe these tools may not be able to do it. But
Mm.
do you think that it is going to change a lot around LinkedIn, because there will be a lot of content, a lot of people will be posting. It's very hard to differentiate what is authentic, what is not authentic, so to say. So what is your recommendation? How what's going to change on LinkedIn? What would be your recommendation still on using these tools to people who are listening today?
I think it'll be really interesting. My prediction is that no matter whether we've got these tools, I think for some people that fear to put posts out there, regardless of who wrote it, I think that fear will still hold a lot of people back. Addressing those fears up front is the only way that those tools become more a part of what you do. For me, these tools have been around. Like I said, I love them. I tried them. Things like, ChatGPT, Writer, there's lots of AI programs. What they're really good at is they're great for writing blogs that go on your website where people don't necessarily interact with you. They go and research on your website like a library. But on social media, the inference is and the importance is social. How you win at LinkedIn is not just writing the best laid out content. You write it out you get it better, sorry, by being social. And what do I mean? Go and write a comment on somebody else's post. Go and like somebody else's post. Send somebody else a message. Write your own opinion and really back yourself. You will then attract, the best part is, you'll attract the right kind of people into your community. And you can't do that with robots. So, video is a really great way to distinguish yourself. So, today you've got I could got ChatGPT to write the same thing. Govin could have got the same thing. But when you see me, you see I move my hands a lot. I'm excited. I'm energetic. You can hear me answer questions on the spot. You can hear some of my stories come into this conversation. So, video, I think, will become an important part to distinguish yourself. Doesn't mean every single post needs to be video, but things like LinkedIn Live are a really great tool to get that community and engagement with other people. So don't lose the social in social media just because we've got the tools. Use the tools to help you where it makes sense and make it more efficient because, again, whoever learns how to use them best will win, but never lose yourself. Like I just absolutely put it out there to anyone that's watching this. You are the most unique thing in the world. There is only one of you. There's only one of your business. Do not lose that, even with the most amazing fancy tools.
Yeah. Thanks, Michelle. I think this is also a vote of advice and confidence and great advice for in general. Not it goes beyond LinkedIn. So thank you for sharing that. But it's of course there are a lot to learn around it, right? And you have authored two books around this. Could you tell us a bit more about that? What readers can expect out of them. Just a brief about the books that you have written.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to share because I wrote these books with two different friends, and I'll just share about why I wrote them. I want to help other people grow their businesses, and I can't be everywhere in the world. And there are some people that I want to reach that maybe can't afford to work with me. And so I wrote these books. And so the first one that I wrote is Business Gold, and that's the world's first and only book that's dedicated to LinkedIn company pages and how you use them, how you set them up. As you can see, it's not very thick. So it takes you about 2 hours to read it. And it's all that you need to know to have a successful company page. Just last year in November, I wrote the LinkedIn branding book. And this one is a completely different style. Links into one of my podcasts called The LinkedIn Branding Show. No surprises. It's really the book that I wrote for myself with my friend. We both started our businesses, just coming up to 3 years ago. And it's the book that both of us wish that we had. So we share our stories about what I didn't know about branding. I used to think it was just logos and colors, and I didn't think it had an impact on my business because, I come from sales. Sales do all the work. And I got very smart that actually branding is an important part of LinkedIn. So again, it's another short read, but it comes with a really amazing bonus workbook. And I say it's amazing because I did it myself over the holiday break just gone to set my business up for success. So the tools that are in here, they're not just tools that we made up to give away that are just, whatever, just cheap things. If I was to do training with people, it would be like, probably 100 times the price of this book. But I use it myself. And so if you're looking for a way to set up your brand for your company or your personal brand, because we talk about both and how you use them together, I can't recommend this book the most. That is the number one book that I think everyone should read if they're going to start out on LinkedIn.
Thanks, Michelle. It's really great, and thank you for sharing. I highly recommend all the listeners who are listening live or otherwise is to go through, and buy this book. I'm sure you will benefit a lot, like Michelle said. But Michelle, of course, apart from these books, what are the things that audience can also follow on, to learn more about LinkedIn? Any other resources? Any other pages or people you would recommend along with books that they should be following up and learning from there?
Yeah, look, there's a number of different books that I would have for some friends of mine that are also LinkedIn trainers. So John Asperian is someone who I know and trust, who's a great LinkedIn trainer based out of the UK. He wrote a book called Content DNA. That's amazing. I've got another friend, Brenda Meller, who is in the US, and she wrote a book called Social Media Pie. So how do you get a bigger slice of LinkedIn? So they're two really great books. I also have like a YouTube channel, which has lots of how-tos. How do you get the most out of LinkedIn? And so that's another resource for those people. Again, if you don't like to read and you like to learn by watching YouTube videos, I've got you covered. And I've got a couple of podcasts, as I said. So I've got my LinkedIn for B2B growth show, which is all of the best from around the world that can teach you how do you use things like automation on LinkedIn? How do you use things like podcasting for B2Bs? So, all about how B2Bs, and that includes startup B2Bs, how do you use LinkedIn as a part of all of these other processes to grow your business? So, there's lots of tools. Please reach out and connect with me. I would love to hear from anyone that's, watched this live or watched the replay. Let us know that you came to the Arctic Invent event so that I know that this is how you discovered me. So I can thank the team for, letting me come on the show to have this opportunity to talk to you all.
Thanks, Michelle. And since we know that you are on the advisory council, and you are probably also know some secrets what's coming on LinkedIn. Can you give us some sneak peeks? What's
Yes.
coming on LinkedIn?
Yes, look, community is going to be the word, the buzzword that we get used in 2023. So everything that you do, either as an individual or as a business on LinkedIn, is about building communities. So groups will become better on LinkedIn. They're not so great right now. Give them a bit of time. They're getting there. So groups will see some more love. Company pages are seeing more and more features. We've seen a couple already now where if you go to a company page and you look underneath the banner in the top right-hand corner, there'll be a little bell. And if you click that bell, it means you'll subscribe to that company page's content and you'll always get notified of what they're posting. A second thing that they've recently released, and these might still just be being rolled out around the world, is that company pages can follow other company pages now. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, imagine that you've got a client that you're working with that you want to make sure you keep up to date with what they're doing to see, can your company page support it? Does someone in your team need to reach out? Is there a signal that they're going to be buying something sometime soon? So it could be like an investor that you want to work with, that you want to see what they're talking about so you can be prepared when you have a conversation or a meeting with them. And so you can do that. So customers, competitors, to see what they're doing. It never hurts to have one eye on the market to see what's going on out there. Whatever you do, don't use that to copy them. Like, do not copy anyone else, even though it looks good. It will work for them. It may not work for you. So we're seeing these new features come through. But again, just the more that you're active and the bigger investment of your time that you put into this, the more the rewards come. But be patient is my number one rule. Be patient. This is something that takes time.
Yeah. I think with the attention span of 3 seconds now of humankind, being patient is
Uh,
is getting very difficult.
Look, I am the worst person for it. I'm completely impatient. I'm the typical high achiever that wants everything now, now, now. And I'm sure that there's a lot of startup founders that can relate to that. So, patience on LinkedIn, build quality relationships with the right people in your industry, and look for ways that you can collaborate with other people. So, if you think about it, LinkedIn is really hard if you try and do it by yourself. One of the things that I love is that I wake up in the morning and I'll see that there's a referral from somebody in the world to come sending people to me. And they do that because when they wake up, I've sent them messages if I've noticed things, hey, this is not my kind of business, but I know you do this. Maybe you could reach out. And they really appreciate it. So, the best advice that my grandmother gave me is what goes around comes around. And so the more that you give to other people on LinkedIn, the more that they'll give to you. And that is, that is the best lesson.
Thanks. I think uh, it's probably learning LinkedIn. We are learning life to some, and learning some important aspects of life. So thank you for sharing that, Michelle. But as we are coming to the end, what would be the 5 things that you would say to a startup, who are listening, as a kind of a takeaway? Is that okay? Here are the 5 things that you must do on LinkedIn. So what would be those 5 things?
Number one, you have to be on LinkedIn. It's not negotiable anymore. It's not an option. So, for those of you who are sitting back going, I don't think B2B really needs to be on LinkedIn, you absolutely have no choice. The next thing that I would do is make sure that you have a personal profile, especially if you're the founder. have a personal profile that really reflects what you're up to and why other people should care about it. So we write profiles now as almost like a 24/7 salesperson for the people that you want to help. And again, always focusing on the people that you want to help. What goes around comes around. Like I said, be active, be a contributing member on LinkedIn, and make sure that you go out and support other people and their content. If you want them to support yours, go out and support theirs first. We almost train and teach people how to engage with us. And I can't stress that enough. If you try and make it all about you, everyone just goes, well, you don't help me. Why should I help you? And so that's really important. The fourth thing that I would say is give it a go. You're not going to be perfect from the very beginning, and nobody cares. So put content out there and just share what you're up to in your business and why you're trying to create it. So you're not creating startups just for no reason. There are far easier ways to go about the world. You can go and work for someone else. It's a lot less stressful and a lot easier. But tell us why you're doing it. What makes you passionate about that particular thing? And I think the last thing is, if you're a startup coming on there, mix around your content types across your company page and your personal profile. But ultimately, the main thing is don't try and do too much too quickly, because you'll burn out, results won't happen quickly, and you'll come back and you'll say, Michelle, LinkedIn doesn't work. Now, I can assure you it works. My business will double this year again, which is, just incredible. It can happen for you as well with patience and persistence. And most people give up too quick. So this isn't 3 months and you're done. This is for as long as you have your business, you have to keep going. And so, yeah, make plans that you can sustain over time. And, don't forget as a startup founder to take care of yourself, and don't try and just jam too much in on, at the beginning. Give yourself some time. So no, that was probably
Thanks,
six.
Michelle. Great piece of advice. I think these are the five absolute, takeaway that I would definitely would be doing, and also telling others that they should be doing. We have got comments from Dhruv, Poonam, and Sarasija, thanking you for great information. One question I do have before we conclude and we kind of get there is how to grow network on LinkedIn. Like, is it okay to use automation to get a lot of connection requests out? What's your also recommendations around how to grow your personal network, or connect with prospects or people
Yeah.
who you want to really interact with? So some advice around growing network on LinkedIn would be great addition to this conversation.
So, my first piece of advice is, if someone comes to you with an automation tool, run as fast as you can in the opposite direction. And the reason I say that, it's against LinkedIn's terms and conditions, and you can lose your whole account if they catch you. LinkedIn have things in place that the AI detects if you do too many things too quickly. You end up in what we call LinkedIn jail. So you'll lose your account. Now, my advice to people is slow down, speed kills. So, what I mean by that, fewer connections, but more quality connections will get you further than having big numbers. How do you do this? The search bar on LinkedIn is really powerful and underestimated. I can't tell you, you do not need to pay for Sales Navigator for most people. The search bar is going to show you. Type in a keyword related to your industry. So in your case, it might be IP. So you just type that in. It will give you a list of people. It will give you a list of companies. It will give you a list of posts and all kinds of different ways that you can go and search for the key people in your industry. Start off with people that are really close, customers, colleagues, former customers, potential customers that you're talking to. Then work out further away from you. So, who are industry member associate? Like, there might be industry associations. There might be businesses that are similar to yours that work in the same industry but not quite do the same as what you do. It might be a different part. And then just keep moving out. Maybe it's people overseas that do what you do, and just keep building it. But the more you spend time on building a quality community built around what you do, you don't need 10 million people to connect to. You actually probably only need a couple of thousand of the right people maximum. So if you see people that have got 150,000 followers, 60,000 followers, do not be put off by that. For most people on LinkedIn, you just need a few thousand of the right people to be able to get you where you want to go.
Thanks, Michelle. It's pleasure. I learned a lot. I'm sure my audience will learned a lot. Thank you for sharing all your, some of the secret tips as well, which you
I
teach,
do.
to your, customers. Thank you for, like you said, you have given us a lot of value. I'm sure, somebody will come and, we hope that something goes around and comes around to you with this conversation. Thank you so much.
Look, I
Uh,
appreciate it. Look, for those people that have invested an hour of their time tonight with us, I really wanted to make sure that you go away. You might want to watch the replay and scribble down some notes and go away and implement them. So I wish you all the best with your startups. It's not easy. And yeah, I'm just really grateful that we live in a world where people are passionate about what they do. So go out there, be brave, and share it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so Michelle, I would appreciate if you can post the links of your podcasts and pages here
Absolutely.
so it will help my audience to kind of get there, and it would be amazing for us to learn from what you do.
Yeah.
And I wish you all the best, and thank you, listeners. Thank you once again for attending this session. Thank you, Michelle, for staying with us. I I I don't have any questions today because I believe that we believe I have covered a lot of conversations which answer a lot of questions for a lot of people. So thank you, and to all the people who are listening in today, come and follow Arctic Invent page and hear what we are doing. We have new sessions coming up, and do subscribe to our page, and we looking forward to the next event which we have later in February and then in March as well. And do not forget to follow Michelle. I'm sure you learned a lot today, and do follow her on her page as well. Thank you all. Thank you for your time, and I wish you the best, and see you in the next podcast.